all my previous videos we were looking at the data of a relatively small size. However, if I look all the way down, I can see that Excel is able to handle over 1 million rows, and many times companies take advantage of that fact. In this video and in upcoming episodes, I'm going to give you some tools that will help you playing with data when it gets really big. I've created a simple table to demonstrate filtering purposes. The table gives us a month worth of data showing sales of different bicycles across a couple of cities. This is totally fictional, however should serve our purpose to demonstrate filtering. The very first thing I need to do is apply filters. I can do it by clicking anywhere within the data range, going to data and pressing filter. However, a shorter and easier method is to press Ctrl-Shift-L. If I do it again, it's unfiltering everything. So let's bring them back in. You can tell that the filter was applied if you can see those small arrows on headings of your table. With the filters applied, I can now use them. If I click on the arrow next to the heading title, Excel gives me an option to simply select values. As you can see, it automatically recognizes that this column is dealing with the dates, so we have date specific filters. However, let's go step by step. If I had a very simple request of saying what were the sales on 16th of June, I can simply click the drop down arrow and go deselect the entire year and then go to 16th of June and click OK. As you can see, data is only showing values for this specific date. I can undo it by clicking the arrow and saying clear filters from date. If I wanted to select 2 days, it's exactly the same story, let's say 1st and 2nd. And there you go. However, applying filter this way for many values can be a little tricky using a mouse, so there is a trick how to do it with the keyboard, and it's a little bit more accurate when you have a lot of values to select. If I click on cell B3 and then holding Alt press down arrow, Excel will bring the dialog. I can now use down arrow to go all the way down to the values. I need to press tab now to switch to the lower section, and using up and down arrows I can now say click space and apply additional filters to my date. If I hit enter or click OK, I will only filter on selected dates. The real advantage of Excel recognizing this column values as date is that it now gives me an option to filter on date specific filters. I could choose from options like today, tomorrow, next week, this month, next quarter, and so on. However, the problem here is that my data is from June and we are in October, so none of them would work. On a daily basis, they are very useful. However, we can still use more advanced filters here. I could say that I want to only see sales before 12th of June. If I click on before and say is before, I could use the date picker to choose 12th of June, and if I click OK to that, the filter will only show 11 days until 12th of June. Likewise, I could also select dates between. So if I go to date filters, between, I can select 2 dates that would correspond the period I want to see. So once again going to June, let's say from 10th of June, and I don't need to use the picker, I could just copy the date here and manually overwrite this to, let's say, 20th of June. And if you notice here, the drop downs give me a couple of options. At the moment, what we're telling Excel is that we want all dates that are after or equal to 10th of June. If I wanted this to be only after, so not including 10th of June, I can change that to is after. As you can see, I have a couple other options here, and we also can take advantage of this operator where if it's an and, it means both criteria needs to be met. If it's or, one of the 2 criteria need to be met. That allows you to apply some more complex filters. If I click OK to that, as you can see, the dates are between 10th and 20th of June. Now let's unfilter that and move on to the city column. The easiest way I can filter something here that applies actually to any other column as well, is if I, for example, wanted to see only London, I can click anywhere where London appears and then right click within this cell and say filter, and either selected cell's value. I could also filter by color, font color, or cell icon. In our case, it is going to be the cell value. So if I click on that, as you can see, London appears as a only selected item. If I now change my mind and say that I actually want London and let's say Budapest, I can click on this drop down, scroll down to Budapest and hit OK. Now we can see values for both of them. Now one issue you may come across is when you have a lot of values in that column, and if you wanted to add one more, now we only can see 4. However, sometimes the list can be much longer with a lot of scrolling to be done. So you can use the search functionality at any filter. Let's say we want to add Zagreb. And as you can see, Excel will filter on Zagreb because it's matching the text we just typed in. However, one thing to remember here is we need to tick add current selection to the filter. That will ensure that we are adding this item, not changing the filter. To show you the difference, if I now type in Zagreb and don't tick this box, we are only going to filter on Zagreb. With this method, there is one trick worth probably mentioning. If I clear the filter and let's say I wanted to see all the cities except Zagreb, I could once again click the drop down next to city, start typing Zagreb, deselect Zagreb and select add current selection to the filter. If I do that, you will see that Zagreb disappeared from the list, which means we effectively filtered it out from the range. Our list was by default sorted by the date. If I wanted to change it and keeping the same filters applied, I could click the drop down menu and say sort A to Z by city. As you can see, the date is not in order anymore, however the cities are sorted alphabetically. If I wanted to change it back to the way it was, I could either do the same on the date drop down, or I can right click anywhere within date column and say sort and oldest to newest. That will bring back things as they were. Coming back to filters, however, likewise with the date, Excel offers a lot of text specific functions. So if I once again click on the drop down next to the city, I can see text filters, which gives me option to say equals to. I could say, for example, Zagreb, does not equal to. I could filter out Zagreb by saying does not equal to Zagreb. I can say begins with, ends with, contains, does not contain, or apply a custom filter, which I'm going to explain more on the next column. Let me start by unfiltering everything. Since I only have filter on one column, I could just go to that column and say clear filter. The second option for me would be to go to data and then clear. That would remove all the filters, as you can see here. Let me undo that. And the last, probably the quickest option, would be to say Alt AC. That means all filters are removed. If you look at column D, most bikes have unique names. However, there are two varieties of a road bike. There's a road bike and performance road bike. Now, if I wanted to filter out performance road bikes, I could of course go to the drop down and untick performance road bike, which should leave me with everything except the road bikes. However, I can also use the text filters just to demonstrate its power. So if I go to text values, I can say that keep only values that do not contain. And if I type here performance, click OK to that, as you can see, performance road bikes will be taken out. You also use the custom filter to apply more sophisticated scenarios. So let's say I will go to text filters and then custom filter. Let's keep the one we already have. So we only want to show all the products that don't contain performance in their name, but we also want to show products that start with mountain. So we can say begins with. If I click OK to that, we can only see the mountain bike because this is the only value that fits all criteria. However, depending on your scenarios, you can do a lot of changes here. Now let's assume that my goal is to show everything except performance road bikes. I can do it simply by unticking the box, and it's going to work great with the file we have. However, if I now change one of the values, so let's say test value here, if I reapply the filters, going to data, filters, reapply, you can see that the test value disappeared. And the reason for that is that we effectively told Excel to only keep those 3 values. We didn't make it future-proof, meaning that any new product that appears does not match the original filter criteria. It does not equal to road bike, does not equal to mountain bike, and it does not equal to hybrid. So if your file changes from time to time, the way to prevent this happening would be to use the text filters. Let me undo the changes one more time, clear all the filters and show you what would it be if I use the text filters. So if I go to product, go to text filters, and this time I will say does not equal to, let's be specific, we could use contains, but let's make it very specific. And I want the values to not be equal to performance road bike. So if I type it here, if I click OK to that, as you can see, the performance bike disappears. However, now if I change any of the values to test value and go to reapply filters, test value will stay as it meets the criteria of not being equal to performance road bike. Let me quickly undo the changes to remove the test value. So if I click Ctrl Z, we should not see test value anymore. And if I unfilter everything, we can move on to the quantity column. Here, similarly as in date and text filters, we get number specific filters because Excel wisely recognized that we're dealing with numbers here. You have very basic equals to, does not equal to, greater than, and so on. With the custom filter, you can apply any combination of those. However, very useful features are below average, above average, and the top 10. If I actually click on top 10, it allows me to only filter on specific number of items. If I change that, I can also deal with percent. This one gives me top or bottom numbers depending on my needs. Now, just to quickly recap everything we've done so far, let's say I only want to see values from between 10th and 20th, so I can go to between and then say 10th of June 2019 and then 20th of June 2019, and I only want to see that for, I don't know, Budapest and London. And as a last thing, I want to only see mountain bikes. So I can go to filter and then filter on sales value. And in here, let's say I want to sort it by the quantity. So I can say from largest to smallest. And just like that, I have all filters I wanted in one place. If I want to remove them, either click data clear or Alt AC. And that should bring me back to the original value. And once again, let's try to apply this knowledge in the real world. So I went to Yahoo Finance, then in the search bar I typed in Microsoft as a MSFT, and then I changed it to historical data. What I'm going to do now is change the date range to maximum, and done to that. And I think if I apply that, let's have it as a daily to have a really big data. I can download this data, which should give me an Excel spreadsheet. I can very quickly apply the filters if I go to data and then filter, or click Ctrl-Shift-L, and then Excel will allow me to filter by all sorts of date filters. Let's say we only want to see the values from this month. You can see how quick that is. And then for the number filters, if I undo that, we could say that, for example, show me any transaction that the volume was above average. So I could just do above average. I could do below average. I could say show me the top 10, or let's say top 3 volume-wise transactions. Yeah. and that also gives me the date. So depending on my needs, I can apply as many filters as I want. And once again, to demonstrate why sometimes using keyboard can be quicker than the mouse, let's say that I wanted to select specific dates here. If I click Alt and down arrow and then click down arrow a couple more times, tap to get to the next window, as you can see, if I click right arrow, that expands the entire month. So if I, let's say, start with deselecting everything, so if I click space now, I can one by one select the values I want, and I believe this is a little bit more accurate than doing it with a mouse, depending of course on the volume. Click OK to that. I only keep the selected values. That's all I planned for this episode. From now on, the data is going to get bigger and bigger, and things will get more and more interesting as we go along. In next episodes, we're going to cover tables, which are a much easier way of filtering, and they offer a couple extra benefits. So if you like the video and you want to be up to date with the latest episodes, please hit subscribe. Once again, thank you very much for watching my video.